The empty calendar on my kitchen wall almost broke me in my first year of retirement, and not because I ran out of money, but because I ran out of somewhere to be. Before I get into it, if this is the kind of honest talk you've been looking for, do an old man a favor and subscribe. It keeps these conversations going. For 41 years, I ran a warehouse logistics floor in Ohio. My life had exactly one setting: alarm at 5, coffee in a truck, the cheap kind that goes bitter by the time you hit the highway, home after dark. That was it. That was the shape of a Tuesday, a Thursday, a whole decade. I didn't think about it. You don't think about the ground you're standing on. You just stand on it. Then one Friday in March, they handed me a cake. Sheet cake on the break room table, my name spelled right, a few handshakes, somebody's phone taking a picture nobody would ever look at again. And that was the end of it. 41 years, and it closed like a door in an afternoon. I drove home that night feeling something close to relief. I'd earned it. I'd finally earned the quiet. By Monday, the calendar on my kitchen wall was blank all the way to the horizon. No alarm, no truck, no floor waiting on me. And here is the thing nobody tells you. I always figured that if retirement scared me, it would be about money. The savings, the numbers, the will it last. That's the fear everybody talks about. But money wasn't what undid me. What undid me was running out of appointments. That first Tuesday, I stood in my own kitchen at 10 in the morning with a coffee going cold in my hand, and I heard the refrigerator hum. Actually heard it. That low, steady sound it had been making for years, and I had never once been home and still enough to notice it. 10 in the morning, on a work day, and nowhere to be. If you've ever stood in a quiet kitchen at 10 in the morning, not knowing what to do with yourself, then you already know exactly what I mean. I'll tell you the honest truth of it. I didn't know who I was without somewhere to be. For 4 decades, the answer to "who are you" had a job title in it, a shift in it, a place I was needed. Take that away, and I stood there in my socks, in a silent house, and couldn't finish the sentence. The man I'd been clocked out on a Friday and just never clocked back in. So I did what men like me do. I invented work. I repainted a fence that did not need painting. It was fine. It was a perfectly good fence. I painted it anyway, slow and careful, because it gave the day a shape. I reorganized the garage. Then, a week later, I reorganized the garage twice, because I'd run out of the first job and needed another one. I labeled boxes. I sorted screws by size into little jars like some kind of madman. I told myself I was being productive. What I was really doing was running from that silence, filling the blank calendar with chores so I wouldn't have to sit in the empty space and hear how quiet it really was. And it almost worked. Almost. Because here's what started creeping in. I'd catch myself around 4 in the afternoon, paintbrush in hand or standing over some sorted box of nothing, and I'd feel this low, strange guilt. Hard to describe. Like I was getting away with something. Like a slow day was a debt, and somewhere down the line, a bill was going to come due for it. A whole life of 5 in the morning alarms teaches your body that rest is something you pay for later. So there I'd be, at 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, feeling guilty for having a Tuesday at all. At first I thought it would pass. A rough patch, growing pains of a new life. Give it a couple of weeks and it'd fade. It didn't fade. That guilt at 4 in the afternoon, that feeling that a slow day was a debt I'd have to pay back, didn't stay small. It followed me right out of March and into the spring. And instead of getting lighter, it got heavier. No amount of invented work could touch it. Repaint every fence in the county, and it was still there waiting for me at 4 o'clock. That, it turned out, was the real weight I was going to be carrying. And it didn't stop at 4 in the afternoon. It moved in. By April, then May, that low guilt had a schedule of its own, and it was more reliable than any meeting I'd ever run. Every slow hour felt like a bill I hadn't paid. I'd sit down for 10 minutes and hear a voice in the back of my head asking what I thought I was doing. So I paid the bill the only way I knew how. I worked, not real work, invented work. I made lists on a notepad by the phone, and when the list got short, I added things to it just to keep it long. Sweep the garage. Sweep it again. Check the gutters that didn't need checking. I told myself I was being productive. What I was really doing was running from a quiet house at 10 in the morning, coffee going cold in my hand, the refrigerator humming like it was the only thing in the world with a job to do. And here's the thing I finally had to admit to myself, sitting there restless on my own couch while the sun crawled across the living room floor. It was never really about the money. I thought it would be. What actually had me by the throat was something I couldn't put a number on. I had handed my whole self over to a company since I was 22 years old, 41 years. Somewhere in there, the schedule stopped being something I did and became who I was. Take the schedule away, and I honestly did not know what a day was for. That's a strange thing to say out loud at 64. You spend your whole life waiting to be free of the clock, and then it lets go of your wrist, and you find out your hand doesn't know how to open. The blank calendar was still hanging on the kitchen wall. Spring pages now. I turned March to April, April to May, and every square underneath was empty, all the way down. I used to fill those squares in pencil, hard, like they meant something. Now I couldn't even bring myself to write my own name on a Tuesday. If you felt that quiet guilt over an unscheduled afternoon, do me a favor and tell me in the comments how many months in you are. Just the number. I'd bet real money you're not as alone in it as you think you are. I know I felt alone in it. I was wrong, because the thing that finally turned it didn't come from a book. It didn't come from some plan I sat down and made. It came from a man named Frank on a Thursday in the paint aisle of a little hardware store 2 towns over. I didn't go there for advice. I went there for a can of primer I didn't need for a fence I'd already painted once that spring. That tells you everything, doesn't it? I was inventing errands now, driving 20 minutes to buy something, just to have somewhere to be. And Frank was behind the counter, older than me, easy in a way I couldn't remember being. We got to talking the way men that age do, slow, no rush, retired plumber, 12 years off the tools, and something about the calm on him just cracked me open a little because I told him the truth. I said it plain. I told him I was climbing the walls, that I'd been retired a couple of months, and I was filling every single hour, and I still felt like I was somehow falling behind. That a slow afternoon made me feel guilty, like I was getting away with something I'd have to answer for. I half expected him to laugh at me, or worse, to give me one of those bright little sayings people hand you when they don't really understand. Enjoy it while it lasts. You earned it. The kind of thing that means nothing when you're the one drowning. He didn't do that. He just nodded, slow, like I'd told him something he already knew from the inside, because he had been exactly here. 12 years back, standing in the same quiet, feeling the same debt come due every afternoon at 4. And maybe that's what you're waiting for too. Maybe you're waiting for the same thing I was waiting for, standing in that paint aisle. Not a strategy, not a 5-step plan, just one person who's been through it to look you in the eye and tell you it's allowed. Frank set down the primer. He looked at me, calm as anything, a man 12 years into the same quiet I was drowning in, and he said one thing about stillness that rearranged something in me right there on the spot. I've carried his exact words ever since. They're the whole reason the guilt finally let go of me. He told me it took him almost a year to stop treating rest like a chore. And then he said the thing I've carried ever since. He said stillness wasn't the absence of a life. It was the room where one finally grows. I stood there in that hardware store, a bag of drywall screws in my hand, screws I didn't even need, and something in me just went quiet, because I'd had it backward the whole time. I thought the empty hours were a hole I had to fill before someone noticed. Frank was telling me they were a room I'd never once been allowed to stand in, 41 years, and no one had ever let me just be in the space I was in. So I stopped. Not all at once. A man doesn't undo 4 decades of alarms in a weekend. But I stopped reaching for the paintbrush. I stopped inventing chores at 4 in the afternoon to buy off the guilt. I let the garage stay the way it was. And slowly, one morning at a time, I started letting the mornings be long. That's when the porch became the whole thing. You have to understand what that first cup of coffee used to be. For 40 years, it was something I drank in the dark, in the cab of a truck, with the engine running and my mind already on the loading dock, cold by 10 if I ever set it down. Now, I carry it out to the back porch before the sun's all the way up, and I sit. That's it. That's the whole plan. I sit, and I let the yard wake up around me. The birds start first. Then the light comes low across the grass, and the dew catches it, and somewhere a dog barks 2 streets over, and there is no meeting on the other side of any of it. Nothing waiting. The coffee stays warm in my hands because I'm actually drinking it. The refrigerator still hums in that quiet house, but it doesn't sound like loneliness anymore. It just sounds like a Tuesday. And here's the most honest thing I learned, and I'll say it plain, because it took me the better part of a year to earn it. The empty calendar wasn't the enemy. That blank wall in my kitchen that I dreaded every single morning, all those white squares running out to the horizon, it wasn't a threat. It was the first teacher I'd had in 40 years who wasn't in a hurry. Everything before it had a deadline. Every boss, every quota, every clock. This was the first thing in my whole adult life that just waited for me. Patient. Asked nothing. Let me be slow and clumsy about learning what a free Tuesday was even for. And once I stopped fighting it, it started handing things back. Because that's what it did. It handed me back a self I'd rented out to a company since I was 22. The man underneath the job title. The one who reads slow, a chapter in the morning and not a page more if he doesn't feel like it. The one who walks at dawn just to see the street empty and gold. The one who calls his daughter on a Wednesday for no reason at all, not a birthday, not bad news, just to hear how her week is going. That man had been in there the whole time. He'd just been on the clock for 41 years. Is it too late to learn how to be still? No, it is not. I'm proof of it, and I'm as stubborn as they come. If an old warehouse man from Ohio can unlearn the alarm at 5, so can you. So let me finish with the part that still catches me off guard when I think about it. The silence I was so sure would break me. The quiet I stood in that first Tuesday with the coffee going cold, terrified, because I didn't know who I was, without somewhere to be. That silence is the exact thing that finally taught me how to hear myself. It didn't break me. It gave me back. And I know some of you are right there now. So if you're standing at the edge of a blank calendar right now, scared of all that open space, hear me. Don't rush to fill it. I know every instinct you've got is screaming to schedule something, to prove you're still useful, to pay down that low guilt before it grows. Don't. That guilt was never a real debt. Nobody's coming to collect. Sit with it a while instead. Let the morning be long. Let the coffee go warm in your hands. Let the yard wake up without you having to be anywhere. The open space you're so afraid of is not the end of your usefulness. It's a room. And it's been waiting a long time for you to finally walk into it. That quiet Tuesday you're dreading. The slow one, the empty one. The one with nothing on the wall. That just might be the day the second half of your life quietly begins.